you may be aware there is a preliminary election coming up on January 17th for the Quincy Ward 4 City Council seat. There will be 4 candidates in that special election vying to get on the final election ballot, which will be held on February the 7th. We're so pleased to welcome one of them to the program today. Joel Buenaventura is joining us here in studio to tell us a little bit about himself, about his background, and about his reasons for running for City Council. So Joel, first of all, very nice to meet you.
Oh, nice to meet you, Joe.
Appreciate the opportunity to talk to you and learn about your candidacy. It's going to be a quick one, right?
Yeah, as everyone knows, well, it's been called the Sprint.
Right.
It's quite. I can't believe I just came from City Hall this morning, and they drew the order of the names on the ballots for the preliminary on January 17th.
Oh, what order will you be on?
I will be third on the ballot.
Third on the ballot.
And I'll post some pictures on my Facebook and later, so people can see. Hopefully.
Great. So please tell us the Joel Buenaventura story.
The story you're going to have to help me with.
I sure will.
Well, I'm a lifelong resident of Quincy.
Okay.
My parents and I, myself and my sister, we came to Quincy in 1976. We immigrated from the Philippines. Actually, we lived in Boston for a very short time. My mother is a physician, and my father was an attorney in the Philippines, and actually was an attorney. He was a licensed attorney here. What happened was my mother was working at Middlesex County Hospital, and she was a house officer. And basically, around that time, she had to get a new job, and she got a new job at what was formerly the Long Island Shelter, but it was a hospital at that time, and she was a house officer there.
Really?
And we lived in North Quincy on Bay State Road, and then eventually we got to Common Street in 1981.
Okay.
I started out, I went to grammar school at Sacred Heart School, which was now folded into, I think St. Anne's and St. Mary's closed, and it got all folded into, and Sacred Heart did close, and it got folded into Quincy Academy. So I went there. I graduated in 1985, if I recall my dates. It's hard. Sure. It's hard. Then after that, again, Catholic education. I went to BC High after that.
Okay.
Yeah, I did. And after that, I sort of went a little off the path of a Catholic education. I ended up graduating from Sarah Lawrence College in Bronxville, New York, Yonkers, New York. It was an undergraduate degree. I mainly studied biology. I was interested in sciences back then, but eventually after that I graduated. I did a master's. I was thinking before then, I did a master's of public health at Boston University. So I was kind of interested in healthcare interests, and those interests actually brought me to, I worked at Mass Health for about a year, a little over a year. I interned. And
for the state?
Yeah,
the
okay. State. It was actually the Division of Medical Assistance back then.
Okay.
So, and I worked there. I had a graduate student internship, and I was a budget analyst there for a very short time. And then I sort of said, hey, I think I need to learn a little more about healthcare and the law. So I became an attorney, or I went to law school.
Okay.
Yeah, and I became an attorney. But
where'd you go to law school?
I went to law school at the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill.
Oh.
I mean, I did it because it was very expensive education. I think I was able to have the opportunity to go to University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill, and I came back here, and I found my way back here. It takes a while to get a job as a lawyer, but I did eventually get a job at the Massachusetts Department of Public Health, where I pretty much was involved in the regulation of nursing homes, long-term care facilities, and mainly there's, for nurse aides, when they have to get a job, when they have to practice or work in a nursing home, they have to do a certification, mainly like a license.
That's right.
And I took those at an administrative level. I prosecuted those cases whenever there was neglect, abuse, or misappropriation.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, so I have a very special feelings about elder care, elder services. And eventually, at that point, probably like 12 years into my career, I switched gears and I had an opportunity to work here in Quincy, which was great because
back home again.
back home.
Yeah.
Back home because my office was on Washington Street in Boston, And so I had an opportunity to work for the National Association of Government Employees,
Oh,
which
sure.
is a union. It's a union. It's actually a national union, but our locals comprise federal locals. So our members are persons who work for the Veterans Affairs and for civilian employees at military bases. That's mainly the federal division. There's a lot more going on there. And also many of the state agencies, such as MassDOT, EOHHS, also the trial courts. I represent those employees when they go into, when they get disciplined or terminated, when they're going through tough times. Somebody always needs a voice.
Sure.
I've been doing that for 3 years. And that's sort of that's what I'm doing. So I'm sort of
In a nutshell, right? Yeah.
In a nutshell, in a nutshell.
So you work at the Nage Building?
Yeah.
On the Bergen
yeah.
Parkway?
Right
Okay.
across from the Quincy Center T.
Okay, all right.
So many of you might be familiar with that building. So
Sure, sure.
So
So, and your family, do you have family of your own now?
yeah, no, I live with my mom.
Okay.
We live on Common Street at 29 Common Street, and my father passed away in about 2015.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. Yeah.
So it's just been my mom, my sister, and my nephew and my brother-in-law live in New York, in
Oh,
Harlem,
okay.
in East Harlem.
Sure, sure. So, I mean, really, eventually following in your dad's footsteps, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. He was an attorney in the Philippines, so
Okay.
he came over. Martial law was declared, so so the family sort of had to make some
Sure.
quick decisions under
Sure.
that Marcos regime.
So this is kind of your first run, though, at elective office, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
So tell me about that thought process. Wow, how'd that happen?
Well, I had worked on campaigns pretty much for like 12 years. My friend Taki Chan, who was an attorney working in the AG's office when I knew him, and who worked for Michael Morrissey when
Oh,
he
all right.
ran.
Okay.
I volunteered on his campaign. I've helped on other city school committee campaigns, other candidates, Democratic candidates. I've been doing that for like 12 years, but this is my first time thinking about it, and I guess it just sort of popped up. I can't give you like a super explanation to
Okay.
it, but I guess when I heard that the counselor was going to become a judge and he was resigning the seat, I saw a special election, and I thought to myself, well, I thought about really Ward 4 and the people of Ward 4, and I really thought that they needed somebody in this interim time, because the special election is really for the remainder of his term.
Just about a year, right?
Yes,
Not
it's
even,
just
yeah.
about a year, and I thought, I'm someone who has the skill sets, or at least I have the advocacy skill sets. I mean, I know it's a learning process in terms of going from an advocate, like a legal advocate, as opposed to going to a politician and representing a neighborhood.
Right.
I mean, I am aware of issues, and I thought just during this time period, I thought this would be a time that I could go do a campaign, knock door to door, kind of the old-fashioned way. I want to meet people, everybody who's out there. I've been knocking doors, wow, since October. So.
Yep. Okay.
So and before that, I was even knocking doors. I was helping out the Democratic slate of candidates.
Oh, all right. For the midterm elections.
Yeah,
Okay.
for those elections.
Are you a member of the Ward 4 committee?
Yeah, I am.
Okay.
Yeah, I've been on that committee for quite some time.
Sure, sure.
Quite some time.
So how's the door knocking going? What are people telling you? What's your general feeling about what folks are feeling in Ward 4?
Well, I mean, my general feeling is, as I said to the Quincy Sun and the Patriot Ledger, I mean, people are it's kind of interesting, because, there are a lot of families who've lived here quite a long time, invested in this community, and there's a lot of changes. But again, I mean, I've lived there since 1981, so
You've seen a lot of changes.
Yeah, so you're seeing like almost a half a century
Sure.
of thoughts. But I think my sense is a lot of people really enjoy their neighborhoods. They love the idea that they were raised here, or even if you're raising a family, they love that idea. But there's also that almost the change, the traffic. I mean, a highway cuts through our ward. So a lot of people are those intersections, those major intersections, Quincy, Furnace Brook, Adams Street, Quarry Street, Furnace Brook, and the Rotary, the Furnace Brook Rotary at that exit. They definitely are upset, or they definitely want to make sure that that they can get through traffic
Right.
at least. And I know that's a general problem, general issue with development too. I
Absolutely.
mean, that leads to the next issue, which is obviously they are interested in not overall in the city development, but also we have sort of two big development, or maybe three development projects going on. So they'd like to make sure they preserve the integrity of their neighborhoods and their families. I guess you do bring up, I guess, and this is not a campaign issue, but it's more for a development. There is a big development, I believe a 46-unit development going on at the intersection of Copeland and Furnace Brook.
Yes.
And it's going to be at the next zoning meeting on January 10th. So
Okay.
I would just really appreciate it. And I would really appreciate if my neighbors or anyone who has an interest, because that's going to change the makeup of that neighborhood. There was an initial meeting on that, and the zoning board did table it or put it off until January 10th. So if anyone out there has opinions either for or against, I would really appreciate it at the next zoning board meeting on January 10th at 6 o'clock, that they get their voices heard on that,
Okay.
because it's just a very important issue. I think
Sure.
it's beyond the campaign.
It's one of the
And-
gateways to the city right there.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and I think, and it's just that project's been bandied about and talked about, but again, during COVID, it's just a very important issue in that neighborhood.
Look at you, you're already doing constituent services here, Joel.
No, I mean, it's not me about the campaign. I'm sure any of my opponents would also point people.
But you also live there, right? You live in the ward.
Well,
It's
yeah.
an issue you're concerned about.
Well-
Would you call yourself pro-development?
I mean, I think it should be smart development.
all right.
Obviously, when I look outside of, I live Common Street's right on the border of Ward 2 or Ward
Sure.
3. So when I look out of my drive thing, I'm very blessed that I can work in Quincy. But when I look at the driveway at 730 from Adams Street to probably Janasif, those of you who do walk through, who do go through Common Street, it's just backed up. It was not like that even maybe 10 years ago.
Sure.
And it's just a bit. And one of my door knocking neighbors on Common Street did mention that. She's like, 90% of the city must go through my house every day at the intersection of Quarry and
Yeah.
Common Street. So it's just we have all of these intersections and our little bypass ways.
So
and-
smart development.
Yeah, smarter development, or just thoughts about how we can. I mean, I think lifestyles have changed. I do understand people do want to live in condos, and I also understand the need for housing. But I also do understand, again, going back to what I said earlier, it's almost the integrity of the neighborhood. I think people come to Quincy thinking, also wanting to raise their families, and also, I mean, for me, I had opportunities to grow up here, and there is that. I mean, my parents were able to raise a family here.
Yeah.
And I just definitely would like people to have that same feeling.
Okay.
I don't know. I mean, again, it goes back to my elderly issue too. I mean, things that I hear in the obviously, we're living in a time of inflation, extreme inflation.
Yes.
So my older folks, they're also concerned. I mean, they're concerned about their taxes. I mean, they're not. I understand that we're going to get a reduction in property taxes, but there's also a raise in our valuation. So definitely would want to be, I'm a little concerned about how that goes about.
I wanted to ask you about how you feel about the administration's current budgetary process, if you will, and spending patterns and the way it handles the city's economics.
Yeah, well, I'm still learning
Okay.
at it. I mean, I'm sure I'm sure the ward feels certain ways, one end
Yeah.
and the other. I mean, it's something that I would want to learn a little more about.
Okay.
I mean, I think the big thing about any budget is understanding transparency. Also, making sure people know. I mean, people pay property taxes. My mom pays property taxes. I help my mom out because I live with her. So, I mean, we want to know. We want to make sure, because it literally is almost like if you're somebody who invests. I mean, those taxes are like an investment. You're investing in the community. You want to make sure you get whatever value it is you're thinking about it.
Sure.
I mean, it's a little different. I mean, I'm not talking like corporate law here and organizations and corporations and
Quality of life issues, right?
Yeah.
I mean, major projects right now, the public safety complex is big on the agenda. Is that something you think the city needs?
Yeah, obviously. I mean, we want to make sure our neighbors, people are protected.
Sure.
I mean, help our police officers, public safety, definitely. But also, it's almost like growth is. You have to figure out how spending is. It's a very tough subject. Obviously, everyone's kids could always spend up, but
yeah.
we can think about inflation too.
One Ward 4 issue that's on the agenda right now is the proposal to lease Granite Links to Quarry Hills Associates for 99 years. I'm sure you've heard about that.
Yeah, definitely in the news yesterday. Again, going back, I mean, I don't know too much about the issue other than, again, it goes back to transparency. I mean, I understand it was talked about at the city council. There was a little news on the paths. Where the paths? Are the paths there? Did we follow up on that? And in the interview yesterday, I believe on WBZ, they were saying, well, the paths are there, but the signage isn't that great. But again, it's always about transparency, like, again, how are the taxes being paid on that? What is the obligations to the taxpayer when they go into this lease? Again, it's mainly a transparency issue.
Okay.
We definitely want to, I mean, I would want to see more transparency on issues like that. And,
Okay.
And I don't think it's a difficult thing. It's just, you want to make the administration better. So when you ask questions, you're actually, I mean, I'm not going to like sit down and say, no, I disagree. I mean, it's always about, it's a question about signaling and relationships. I mean, as a lawyer, I think what people don't realize is, when you're a lawyer and you're representing people, you're in the same forum. So you have to build the goodwill and you have to build that relationship. Whether you disagree or don't or agree, I mean, you just have to build that relationship.
Yeah. Have you thought about like what committees you'd like to serve on the city council if you're elected? Obviously, finance, ordinance. There's a senior citizens committee.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I want to do anything I can to help my senior citizens.
Yeah.
That's just a special place for me. But
Okay.
I have not really given it too much thought.
Yeah.
I mean, right now the thoughts are campaigning, trying to win the seat, trying to put together, knock doors, learn more about the issues. I mean, as I say, it's really a work in progress. When I was on the quarry board, I had no idea how a board works or
The quarry, were you on?
Yeah, Quincy Asian Resources Board.
Okay.
But you learn and you develop and you figure out what are the projects, how do you get your donors.
Do you think the city does a good job servicing immigrants?
Yeah, I mean, this is a city of immigrants, so yeah. I mean,
Ward 4 in particular, right?
Ward 4 is probably. I don't think people realize it's diverse. I think everybody thinks when you think of Chinese population, North Quincy, and stuff. But yeah, I mean, I think it makes sense. But however, I know in the past there have been issues about are there translators at the police station,
Right.
and that was probably that's more of a decade old. I don't think it's more of a present issue. Obviously, we have some recent issues on hate crimes.
Yes. Yeah.
And I don't necessarily couch what happened at the Wollaston Tea. I mean, and I applaud our counselors and the police and the city for putting together some forums for that. And then this most recent incident, right, literally across the street from here.
Yeah.
I mean, it's improving.
Yeah.
I mean, again, it's a perpetual issue almost.
Well, there is an open position, as you know, for the diversity, equity, inclusion liaison, the mayor has called it, that has not yet been filled. Do you think that needs to be filled?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I think diversity and inclusion. I think it's a diversity. I mean, these are issues I've also worked on with Boston at the BBA. I was on the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee.
BBA?
Boston Bar Association.
Gotcha.
So these are issues that I mean, they're fundamentally something we have to think about. I mean, it's kind of interesting that the race, that the preliminary falls on February 17th. And
January 17th.
Yeah, January 17th, excuse me. And
Day after Martin Luther King
Day. The day
Day.
after Martin Luther King Day. So we really do have to kind of figure out how we approach diversity, equity, inclusion. I don't necessarily think it might be it would be great to fill a position, but I think it's just how we understand. Understand. I mean, I think when we talk about diversity, equity, and inclusion, sometimes also the inclusion part of that equation. I mean, we just need to understand each other better. I mean, I don't know how we get there.
Do you think the public schools do a good job doing that, Joel?
Again, there was that. You bring up that issue from last year. It's been a year.
Has been, yeah.
I actually wanted to follow up with one of the student leaders. He just went off to college.
Okay, yeah.
I know he had a tough first semester. I'm aware of him. He's a child of a friend. Yeah. I think it's that perpetual understanding. What do we do to follow up? I was actually at an event for Congressman Delahunt when they named the courthouse, and they said one of the things he did was put together a high school when he was sort of, wow, this was like 20 years,
right.
25 years ago, but he did put together a forum, something like that. I mean, I think we can do a little more to do that, to make understanding, but again, I'm not as delved. I'm not on the PTO, so I'm not sure what they're doing right now, or what's happening in terms of understanding. But
if elected, how would you kind of correspond with your constituents? Would there be community meetings? Would there be electronic outreach? How do you plan to kind of communicate?
Yeah, that is
with the ward. Yeah,
that's such a tough question now, because I think even on my palm card, I prefer face-to-face communications. I love talking to people, hearing. You can talk to me for like 2 hours. I'll keep listening, But I think in this day and age, I think we have to. People text each other a lot. So I mean, I think there would be like a social media electronic component to it. I would like to go back to a style of having a community meetings. I mean, especially on development projects. And anything. I did one of the things in the campaign, I did try to reach out to the Quincy Ward 4 Civic Association. It's kind of sort of on the wayside right now. So maybe we have to figure out.
I wasn't aware there was one, quite honestly.
Oh no, there was one, but it still exists. It's just not been active.
Not too active. Okay, so maybe re-energize that. Perhaps?
Yeah, re-energize. Find folks who would like to do a civic association. I mean, I think Ward 4 is an interesting place.
Yes.
It's a lot of different as I say, it's economically diverse and it's racially diverse. But it's also, the neighborhoods almost are very different to a T too. It's just, you have Brewer's Corner, you have the people who live over by Quarry Hills on the other side. They're just very different sorts of neighborhoods. I mean, they get together. I mean, when I go to church, at St. Mary's, that's where I see a lot of my neighbors. Or unless you run for ward councilor and you knock everybody's door.
Right.
But yeah, so I think, but people are in the know, People are in the, I mean, people go to I'm sure they go to the Donut King, they go to, they go to Emma's, they go to Granite Street Cafe, and I mean, people are in the know. You'd be surprised at first it's like my mom and I don't show up at church one week at the 4 o'clock at St. Mary's, and the people are like, where are they? What happened to them? Or even when I vote, some of the people who work, they're like, oh, they haven't voted. And we're like, well, we've been voting by mail, that's why.
Right,
But people ask. I mean, people have your back in Ward 4. You just don't think.
So if you win, would you run for the full 2-year term in 2023?
Yeah, I mean, never say never. I mean, I'm not going to say right now. I'm very interested right now in making sure that someone fills that term for the 1 year. We'll see how it goes.
Okay.
And I'll make a decision. Let's see, I just have to know the schedule. I didn't look up the schedule before this interview, so when you actually have to pull papers.
Oh, for
that.
Okay.
But that would be in the back of my head.
Yeah.
But right now I'm really thinking about the concerns of filling that need. Like I said, I mentioned you know, if there's another development, somebody has to like make sure the neighborhood knows.
Okay,
And
all right.
get people informed and just get through this 1 year.
Okay.
And we'll get there.
Can we get some information about how to get a hold of you, Joel, for folks who have questions or comments?
Well, you can definitely call me,
Okay.
text me, 617-750-2512.
Okay.
Okay. The other way you can visit my website. It's still under construction, but it's joelbuenaventura.org, www.joelbuenaventura, like my name, .org. Right now it's under construction. Hopefully I will get that up. I have a political website on Facebook. It was actually printed in the Sun, in the Quincy Sun, and I also have a Twitter website.
Okay.
And that's about it. I think you can email me at joel@joelbuenaventura.org, or my other email is jb2446@gmail.com, but I don't want to overwhelm people.
Okay. Many ways to get a hold of you then.
Yeah, you can find me.
Anything else you'd like to let folks know about you right now?
Yeah. Yeah, well, hopefully I get a chance to meet all of you. I think that's about all I have to say right now.
All right. Well, we appreciate you coming in and telling us your story, and we wish you the best on January 17th. There'll be 2 candidates left after that election, and then the final on February the 7th. So we encourage folks certainly to get out and vote, certainly.
Oh, yeah, and also, I guess, can I add something on?
Please.
Yeah, just also make sure there will be, from my understanding of the clerk's office, there will be absentee ballot voting.
Yes.
I believe the deadline, I don't have it. I think it's It's January 7th or 9th. I have to check that, but
There will be absentee, there'll be mail-in, and there'll be early voting as
Yeah,
well. It's
so
all on the city website. Yeah.
yeah. So I would encourage anyone who wants to vote to take advantage. I know also, it's inclement weather, so we're in that inclement zone of snowstorms, and
Right.
so anyone should just make yourself that those other options are available to you.
Okay.
Okay.
Thanks again. Really appreciate it.
Okay.
And thank you for watching us here at AEM Quincy. I'm Joe Catalano. Please join us again next time.